And they whine and grind, but they cannot help it. They are with it. People under 30, you sitting there at the back, are in a different world. So I believe, and this is why I want the discussion, because you tell me where I'm wrong. I believe that so many of you have a warm Jewish identity and feeling. Something you had from your parents, or from your education, or from your community, or birthright trip, or Hillel activity, or whatever. But so many are confused. Either politically, because of the tension between being a liberal and being supportive of Israel, which is a major source of tension. Or because it's not that clear, why should I care about that country out there? So because of these two reasons, this is the greatest challenge of the American Jewish community. So while you have this amazing success, you have this deep challenge. And in my mind, the only way to deal with the challenge is working with young Israelis. I think that the only way to guarantee Jewish future is to renew a kind of liberal Zionism. So Israel will be attractive to you young people, rather than be an embarrassment and be a source of pride and inspiration. So I think, because I'm obsessed with this, I'm telling you, as I travel, I cannot think of anything else. And I have all kinds of initial ideas. But I think, generally speaking, if we'll work, first of all, my urge and my request is don't give up on Israel. Try fixing it. Be involved with fixing it. So look for whatever part of Israel you can identify and be engaged with. If you're into gay rights, do gay rights with Israel. If you're into the environment, do the environment with Israel. If you're into social justice, do social justice. Help Israel save its own soul, while you being engaged and saving your own soul by being engaged with them. So I think that going on trips to Israel, which is wonderful, is not enough. We need serious work of good people of goodwill there and here working together on shared values and shared projects. I would love to see a Jewish Peace Corps in which young American Jews and young Israelis are involved together in social justice work with Jews in Israel, with non-Jews in Israel, and with people throughout the world. But I can think of many other projects that we should do. So my answer is to your question is, one, no censorship, an open debate. Don't let, and I ask the older people to listen to the young people, not to impose old views on the younger people, to understand what are the concerns, to understand the dilemmas, the torment, to deal with the issues as it is, not to build a kind of Israel cliche and Israel propaganda thing. Israel can be so wonderful, but there are so many problems. If we'll address it as it is, we'll give life to ourselves there and here. So first of all, an open, candid discussion. Then no inter-Jewish isolationism. Let everybody be engaged in a serious way on both sides. But then let's do things together. Because only if we'll have this renewed attitude that we have these two amazing miracles, and both are challenged, and only if we work together on reviving them, we'll guarantee our future. Only in this way we will guarantee our future. Yes, please.
One part of the book that jumped out at me the most was how you said that a future transformative moment in Israel was Hamas extending the range of its missiles and there being thousands dead on the streets of Tel Aviv. I see you guys know where I'm going with this. But this summer, like, that was the range. There was rockets going as far as Hadera, but because of the Iron Dome, there were thankfully very, very few deaths. So, do you see that as possibly Israel having an opportunity to, in the Tel Aviv bubble, having the opportunity to dig its head in the sand in a way, or is it an opportunity to improve the Israeli political discourse vis-a-vis Palestine, or what's the transformative moment because of the Iron Dome?
repeat the question?
I'm trying to understand the question. So the question was combining the fact that I anticipated the rockets on Tel Aviv, but less people got killed than what I anticipated because of Iron Dome, but combining it with a transformative mode.
Yeah,
of
could
how
that
do
be
you
its own transformative mode?
So first of all, dealing with the strategic issue. First of all, it's true that in my book there are some, I anticipated what's happening. What's happening now. One of the reasons that I'm doing my utmost to prevent a third Lebanon war is that if, God forbid, that happens, you will have that scenario. So what we had in the summer is not the scenario I'm talking about. If, God forbid, Hezbollah shoots rockets in Israel, many people will get killed. I don't want to scare you people with dramatic scenario, but it's a very troubling scenario. Very troubling scenario. As one Israeli expert says, this is the kind of scenario that you begin, the moment you begin thinking about it, you stop thinking. So the danger is there. And Iron Dome is wonderful, and really I think Iron Dome is, with all that is being said about Iron Dome, more should be said, because it's a great, it's not only a technological system, it's an icon of how high-tech democracies defend themselves. And it's also an icon of how the American-Israeli relationship should be working. The American generosity supporting, the combination of American support with Israeli technological genius in defending our free society, our values, and our way of life. So Iron Dome is remarkable. And I think the engineers of Iron Dome should get the Nobel Peace Prize because they prevented a real catastrophe this summer. But it's not a magic solution forever. It's not a magic solution. And the deep question regarding Israel now is really whether we will wake up before reality hits us on the head. Because intelligent people, responsible people try to see, we are not 2-year-old children. You don't have to touch the fire in order to know it's hot. So you see the problems, the challenges. I think it's our responsibility to try to act before, God forbid, many people will be hurt. And this is why I do my writing and my speaking, because I think we need to create the change and not to wait, as some of my friends say, it's lost. You cannot do anything. So either wait for, for international sanctions or for some terrible bloodshed. I'm not willing, I'm not a Bolshevik. I'm not willing to accept this approach that it must get horrific before you do the right thing. Let's do the right thing before it gets horrific. Yes, please.
I'd like to go back to your first question that was asked. I'm just wondering, although you pointed out that your book was not published in Hebrew, and obviously would be available in English form in Israel, I'm wondering if you could say something about what the reaction was to your book in Israel for those who were able to read it or read about it. What kind of criticism did you get? Did you get it? Did you get a response?
It's interesting. It's interesting. You are not the first one to ask me, and I keep wondering why is it, throughout my life, and I publish things on television. I'm exposed to public reaction on a daily basis. I never go to the television studio or write an article thinking what will be the reaction to my article. I write what I believe in and let the chips fall where they may. It's interesting that so many people are interested. What would the response be? Had I been thinking what would the response be, I would not have done anything. So first of all, I don't know. From the reaction, the people. First of all, the one thing that I was surprised that the language barrier is higher than I thought. I was surprised that many people that are intelligent and have English, I would have expected them, to read it, and less people read it than I thought. Generally speaking, the one thing that I see that of the people that have read it, young people had great responses, and the main people who were, I think, concerned about, especially things like the leader chapter, and that was an interesting phenomenon. Again, I'm talking about very few people. I'm talking 5. But from the reactions I get, were older labor rights, which I think is interesting, because basically what happens is that people who are really on the left don't have a problem with Israeli brutality, so to speak. People on the right also don't have a problem because they realize it's part of our life. Younger people don't have a problem with that because actually the taboo regarding 48 was broken not by myself. It was broken 20, 30 years ago, probably mainly by Benny Morris and then his writing. So younger Israelis are actually aware of the Nakba, of the story of 48, even if they don't know the details. The people who have difficulty wrestling with that are like moderate older Israelis, because they want to hold their moderate values and their naive concept, and many of them want to forget what they were like 40, 50 years ago. I know it personally from some people, because they transform. And you see it like in the labor movement, the songs there. I'm not talking about just the action thing. People were very nationalistic in the 40s and 50s. And they became much more moderate in the 70s and 80s. And sometimes they have a conflict with themselves. You know, some of my best friends, I have a friend, without getting the name, was a very famous poet. And I love him dearly. And you see that he cannot deal with what he himself wrote, 40 years. Shimon Peres. Shimon Peres was an extreme hawk. And which is okay, I'm all for people changing, but you see that sometimes people have difficulty giving, and they want, when people think about their lives as if it was all harmonic, it was all the same. No, Israel in this sense, the Israeli labor side is moved dramatically to the left over the last 30, 40 years, contrary to the image. So I have a friend, again, there are like gazillion stories like that, who one of the really leaders of the peace movement. And he's like preaching, and when I went into the book and I understood what he did in 48 and what he did afterwards, I would say, wow, and these people have difficulty coming to terms with their own biography. So that's something that I've noticed with a few people, but we shall see. And I'm calm, so I hope you are calm.
One other part of that, then, was there any reviews? There must have been people who read it, the press, magazines. They must have looked at the book, read it, written reviews about it that would have been available to.
As far as I know, there were only 2 reviews written of Israelis. One was by Avram Burg and one by Yossi Beilin. Yossi Beilin was very, very favorable with some nuances. Avram Burg was also favorable, but in a kind of I don't know if you know, Avram Burg is today a member or supporter of the Communist Party. So I'm not totally, my views are not totally in line with his views. But the review was reasonable. So this is not. But see, any young people that are, any students that want to have any questions? We have, here we still have affirmative action. Anyone?
I kind of want to
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, so I kind of have a problem with why the lefties are being so demonized. Like, I'm a lefty, and I lived in Israel for 2 years, and I saw 2 different types of lefties. I can say lefties from America, who never were in the army, who have their ideas, who don't particularly, who kind of see a picture from the side, who can have their own opinions, but at the end of the day, they can always go back, and it doesn't really matter. And then there are other lefties, who are Israelis, who've been to the army, who are very proud of their country, who are kind of patriotic, but just in a somewhat different way. So they want to make the country better by resolving this, and they have their own ways to do it. And I don't see why those people would be a problem. And I personally joined on some events, and I went to the West Bank and harvested fields for the Palestinian farmers with them. And so that's kind of what I have a problem with.
So the question was about lefties being demonized. So first of all, I'm against any sort of demonization. So I definitely, 2, I'm all for lefties. I'm into discussion, into trying to make the lefties, mature and realistic, but I'm, my heart is there. Now, so I don't quite understand the question. I think that the main problem we have in this country, and it has to do with what we discussed. I've heard too many, not here, but I've had too many young American Jews who are feel almost oppressed by their parents, by their congregations, by their rabbis, by the organizations they work with. They are in organizations. And I think this is the wrong attitude. And we talked about it a lot in the afternoon. I think, first of all, I believe in free speech and freedom. And I'm not afraid of anything. I think that dialogue works. So even if there are people sometimes whose opinion, burn my heart, I listen. I don't have a totalitarian buggy. And I think it's the best, first of all, I think it's right on merit. But I think it's also, I think we have to relax. I think that in this day and age, only freedom works. There's no other way. If you don't win hearts and minds in a positive way, you have to reach out to talk to people, to seduce people. You cannot stand with a hammer and saying, you must do this. Here are your talking points. You are a Jew, go there, out, fight the war. We did A, B, C, D. This is what's right, and anyone who says differently is a traitor. It doesn't work. You don't win the PR battle like that. You don't win the battle on campuses like that, where there is a battle. And you lose people. Look, I had heart-breaking conversations with hundreds of students. Hundreds of students. Again, thank God not here. I saw complexities, but I did the kind of conversations that I had in the last, just the last 10 days when I'm on this tour and my previous tour. I mean, the good news is, first of all, what wonderful young people are. Intelligent, warm, humane, wonderful. But you see so many young people that are between a rock and a hard place. Because on the one hand, they are attacked by the enemies of Israel in a kind of, even sometimes even with an anti-Semitic undertone, or definitely viciously. And on the other hand, the Jewish establishment does not help them. Doesn't give them, first of all, doesn't give them the concepts or the information that is relevant. You try to censor, people try to brainwash. And these are intelligent people. Young people are intelligent people, and they cannot stand fakeness. They cannot stand cliches. They cannot stand propaganda. So they, I had an event that again, I have like a lot of experiences, but I finished talking, and like a dozen wonderful students came to me, and each one gave a terrible story. One about his rabbi, one about his father, one about his grandfather, one about who shut them up. That's no way to save our people. That's no way to save our people. So first of all, let's relax. And let's be engaged in a civilized, intelligent, open conversation. Without that, nothing happens in free society. What are we talking about? Well, what's my admiration? We built this on voluntary values. You cannot have a thought police. You cannot send a kind of what are we trying to be? A communist party of the 1950s? It's just ridiculous. So the need of the older generation and the establishment to change its way is dramatic. But it's not just to have open minds. I think that once we get into the open field, there's a lot to be said about in defense and admiration of our people, both there and here. But let's do it with free speech while not being afraid of people who have doubts, who have concerns. And again, the key is winning hearts and minds. There is no other way. So let's do it not with intellectual aggression, not with censorship, but with love. You want to say something?
Okay. So my question is, what place do non-Jewish young people under the age of 30 have at this table that you're proposing?
Anyone cares about it. I'm not into any sort of ethnicity in this case. In my mind, anyone cares for whatever reason. It's emotional, biographical, ideological, religious. Anyone who cares. This Israel has to be totally open to anyone who cares and is involved, and this Israel conversation has to be totally open. So everything that I've said here about young American Jews applies, in my mind, to anyone who sees himself as, for whatever reason, because what it has to do with what we just discussed. It has to do with the fact that it's all based on choice. I don't know another way. I cannot impose things from above. If there is a will there, if there is people who are ethnically, genetically Jewish, but decide not to be Jewish, that's it. No, I won't impose. I'll be very sad, but I won't impose. And people who are not Jewish by birth, but who care about this, because, for whatever reason, it's the big tent has to invite and include anyone who wants to be in it. But if you want to be part of this club in whatever way, yes, please.
Back to politics, when they talk about the Jewish and democratic state of Israel, here in the U.S. we have a separation of church and state, whereas they are extremely intertwined in the state of Israel. And being that the ultra-Orthodox party and Orthodoxy runs the majority of the government programs for like marriage, and then you look at the diaspora, where the majority of the Jewish population is not Orthodox, that I see a tension there that pushes away a lot of Jews from the diaspora because we don't feel welcome in Israel because we're not Orthodox.
Okay, so there are, again, 2-3 layers to what you asked. First of all, church and state. On the one hand, I'm unhappy with the Israeli situation, and I think it has to be changed. On the other hand, I ask Americans to understand that the democratic concept you have is rather rare. There are many democracies that are based on nation states, that have a kind of, that begin with the people that defines itself and is tested by how they treat minorities. An example I like to give is that my family in Britain, they live in a country that is a great democracy. The head of the state is the head of the church. Queen Elizabeth is the queen, which is the head of the Anglican Church. And when my British cousins look up to the Union Jack, it's difficult to count how many crosses there are in their flag. So the fact that America is so neutral in this respect is remarkable, but rather unique. I mean, it's not. There are many democracies. Israel is not that weird. Israel is weird in some ways in this respect, but it's not. We are really on two extremes within the democratic world. Okay? America is one extreme, and Israel. So, and I understand why sometimes Americans have difficulty. Having said that, definitely there is a need to reform Israel dramatically. We won't have, and we won't be able to have a total separation of church and state the way you do. By the way, with all due respect to this separation of church and state, such large parts of America are so religious. And you walk down the street and around Christmas, it's not a neutral country. It's not that neutral. The system is neutral. The country is not neutral. And actually, in some ways, it's more than Israel. It's America. I mean, state-wise, Israel is more religious, but the role of religion in your politics, in your public domain, it's a fascinating, complicated situation. But anyhow, what is definitely we must change our ways, definitely regarding Reform, conservative, whatever, non-Orthodox. And this has to do with what I said before in brackets. It is unacceptable that we will betray our mission as a nation by driving away Jews or non-Jews who want to alienate or to associate with Israel by alienating. It's unacceptable. So definitely, and my argument with, again, with the extreme right and with the extreme religious people, that they who claim to be Zionists, I told you that this part of my article, it's not published in the morning, but probably next week, they are the post-Zionists. They endanger Zionism. Because if you're a Zionist, you're supposed to care about the Jewish people. And these settlers with their extreme policy, and these ultra-Orthodox with their extreme religious practices and the way they impose, they drive away the young American Jews and young British Jews and young Australian Jews. So they're endangering the future of the Jewish people. So in my mind, this is when I said I want partners, I think we need a partnership between the progressive forces and the open-minded forces here with the Israelis to fight this phenomenon together. Fight it together. Because it is unacceptable. That part of it is unacceptable. So Israel cannot be as neutral as America is on these issues. It should not be and cannot be as it is now. And you know, I can tell you from my own experience, it's not only, you know, conservative and reform Jews in America. I got married twice, not with the rabbinical ceremony. So I did it in ways. I mean, I only got divorced under the rabbinical law because I didn't want the ceremony. I found myself, I forced to actually get married. I actually had a perfectly Jewish conservative wedding the first time, but it was not recognized by the state. It was ridiculous. So I had to go to England to get married, so that would be recognized by the state. And so even I'm not an American. I experienced that lack of religious freedom. So, and in fact, there's a silent rebellion of many Israelis like me, who who bypass the system by doing all kinds of inventions, how not to go through the imposed religious course. But I think we must deal with this, and again, we must deal with this together. Let's have one last question. First of all, any young people? Last chance, last call. No, not a remark, no criticism, no nothing? Okay, there we go. Just raise your voice, please.
I'm not sure if this is a good question.
You asked the sex and drugs questions in there. So we can continue with that one.
I guess in the past couple of questions you've talked a lot about belonging for younger Jews who leave Israel and such. And you touched on this briefly, I think. Is there, for non-Jewish people, I'm not Jewish at all. Is there room for us in Israel, I guess, to stay out of place? And I guess even in your book, you dealt with issues of belonging with Oriental Jews, and then with Palestinians, Israeli Palestinians that Dr. Paul brought up. So I guess, does that pose almost a threat to, I guess, a Jewish state of just completely secular people? Is this making sense at all?
So I am not sure I quite understood, so I'll try to answer. If I understand it's you continue the question you asked, right? What's the role of non-Jews who feel engaged, right? So first of all, I mean, I answered it, but I'll be happy to answer it again because I think it's very important. So first of all, let me say something about our history. Now, the Zionist movement in many ways was begun, before we became a political movement by many Christians, a lot of them in England, who had actually the Zionist dream before the Jews got to that. So the movement to begin with, the kind of aspiration, this kind of dream to revive, the ancient Judea or whatever, actually came from non-Jews, even before the Jews began this. Even if you read, it's not that I especially recommend the book, if you begin, you read Benjamin Netanyahu's book about Zionism, The Place Under the Sun, it begins with all these early thinkers who were not Jewish at all. Then throughout the years, there were leading figures who enabled Israel to be and Zionism to be, who were not Jewish. And there are so many examples, but like the most striking example is the person who created actually Israel's army. Israel's army is the product of Ord Wingate, who was a Scottish fellow and a remarkable person, like a kind of crazy genius guy, really remarkable person. You know, if I think of people that I'd really love to meet, I mean, he's one of them, amazing. And I don't know what would have happened to us without him. You know, he came because he had this passion. He had the Bible in him, and he had his reasons. This is why I would say any person, in my mind, any person that feels that this project, this nation, this adventure, this man-made miracle is inspiring for him, that he's related. Anyone is. So just like Jews we cannot impose on any Jews that they have an obligation because they were born Jewish to be committed. Any non-Jew who feels he wants to join is totally welcome. And we definitely have to work, and I'll end with this, on having a place. First of all, actually something along these lines already happened with the great immigration we had from Russia. In 89, 90, we had 1 million immigrants coming from Russia. Probably at least a third were actually not Jews. And actually something, so on the one hand you have many religious problems with religious establishment. On the other hand, by and large, a beautiful process happened because they joined society. You know, they're like Israelis they chose it. And so many of them are soldiers, and you know they saved our country. You know, they enriched us in every way possible. And so although there is some issues with that, by and large they were accepted. This is part of this richness of Israeli society I was talking. So anyone who wants to join, I think, is welcome, definitely with me, but I think is welcome, she or he. But it has to do with this greater vision, because we do want, look, and I'll end with this. Israel is a remarkable oasis of freedom in this troubling region. It is a frontier democracy. So in so many ways, it is like America, and fundamentally, we share so many values, but it's so much more challenging. It's more dangerous, and therefore more, I think, in some ways, also inspiring, because it's a battle. It's not a given. So I think that anyone who wants to join this great, great adventure, and this great human endeavor, and this project that, as I said, in my mind is such a manifestation of the triumph of the human spirit, not the Jewish spirit, the human spirit. Anyone is welcome, and Israel should live up to that. Israel has to be a beacon of freedom, of morality, and of inspiration to all humans. Thank you very much.